Take a look at these gorgeous pieces of jewelry, and you can see that they would be pretty in silver, but the hint of gold makes them even that much more special. Well, today Mark Nelson is going to show us how to do this. Mark, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
Excellent. We're going to do this with a pen plater.
Okay, and we're talking about the power of the pen today, so
very
you
appropriate.
came just in time.
Good. What this is it's a plating process. Okay, we're going to take gold from a solution that's suspended in an acid solution and deposit it on the silver using electricity. It's a very low voltage, very low amp, so there's not a whole lot of shock in the whole thing.
So we're not concerned about dangerous, even though this looks like a pretty intense machine here.
It looks very intimidating with the wires and everything, something from Frankenstein perhaps. But no, our major caution needs to be with the solutions because they are suspended in cyanide or acid and things like that. So we have to take those precautions. So
they are chemical solutions, and that's why you're wearing your gloves.
That's why I'm wearing gloves, and I will be wearing eye protection in case there's a splash or something like that.
Okay, and you'd want to use this in a ventilated area.
Definitely a ventilated area. And you want to get started?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do is, what this process does is it creates a electrical current through a piece. So this right here is my negative piece, my negative clamp, and you just squeeze it. And you need to have your piece clamped to this somewhere.
Because that's conducting the electricity through the piece.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now we have this as part of the current.
Do you always use this with sterling? Are you always plating gold onto sterling when you use this?
Not at all. You can do copper, brass, and things like that. But you have to take an extra step.
Okay.
And which is the first step that we're going to do, which is put down a nickel barrier. And that's this kind of bluish-green solution here.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I have these pens, and they are soaking in the solution.
Okay, and it looks like their tip is sort of fibrous.
It's like a felt tip.
And that's something that you replace every time?
I would. Otherwise, the pens get corroded and they stop working.
Okay.
And nice thing about the felt is that you can shape them even smaller.
Oh, if you're working in really fine detail, then you could trim some away.
Right, and get even smaller areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that, it's nice and soaked in there.
Okay.
And we'll just touch it. Now we're completing that circuit. And what we should see is a little tiny bit of foaming at the tip.
Okay.
And the color will change. I don't know if you can see this, but see how it's getting a little darker gray? That means that there's a thin, thin layer of plating going down onto the sterling.
So the machine is plugged in, it's conducting electricity into this piece, and you're bonding this nickel barrier onto the sterling. Is that right?
Exactly right.
And the barrier is why?
Barrier is why is because when you got gold and silver together, the gold likes to migrate into the silver.
Oh, and we don't want that.
No.
Okay.
And what I'm doing now is rinsing. I'm rinsing that nickel solution off.
Okay.
Because I don't want it to contaminate my gold solution.
Oh, and if you put your pen onto it and then there was still nickel on there, you might get it into your gold solution.
And that would kill the gold solution.
Okay.
So we do have to be careful with that. Now we're just going to do the same thing with the gold. And these little knobs up here, they control the voltage. And you kind of have to play with it. You know, different pieces need different numbers. Okay?
So it's all fairly low voltage,
very low
but you
voltage.
still adjust it at very low levels. And of course you wouldn't want to get your pens near your water.
No, you can. I mean, these are suspended in a. But if you do that, you're going to contaminate the solutions.
Oh, because
it's not an electrical.
It's not an electrical problem, but it's a contamination problem.
Right. See how it's turning color?
Yes.
Now, where there's oxidation, what's going to happen is this gold will lay over the oxidation and look like it's oxidized.
That is so cool.
And so I can come in here and just do the center part. Can rub it, and you can dip occasionally, get it recharged, like dipping a fountain pen in there.
I love the way that you're taking, I mean, basically a beautiful little charm, but you're turning into something very high-end looking.
Very high-end looking, and it's going to increase the value
of your piece.
And increase the aesthetic of it with the contrast of metals. And now this solution happens to be a 24 karat. So it's going to be a little more orangey than your 14 or your 10. And I like that with silver because it stands out so much.
And it gives you a really, mixed metals are so popular right now. So it gives you another way to do that with your work.
Exactly.
And like for me, I don't cast silver, but I do use charms. And so this would be a really easy way for me to personalize my work.
Sure.
By taking a charm that's available in sterling and then adding value by putting the gold plate.
Just a little bit of accent, yeah.
Well, it's amazing that, I mean, it seems so simple.
It is very simple. A couple things to bear in mind is that you only want to use a very little solution at a time.
Okay, and then can you reuse that again, or is this once you've used it, you're done?
You don't want to. That's why you pour as little in here as possible, because if you run the chance of contaminating that, and then pouring it into your big bottle and contaminating that. And you know, with gold, these aren't cheap.
Right.
So
you want to set up your work ahead of time and do several charms at once, or if you're creating your own pieces of metal that you're plating, then you do it all at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So before we take another look at our finished samples, can you walk us through how to set up this machine?
Sure. It's very easy to do. It's only have a couple of things that you need to plug in. The first is going to be this power cord.
Okay.
And it just plugs right into the back, and you'll know it's on because with a little red light will come on. Then what you need to do is hook up your pins.
Okay.
And what you do is you start by putting in a new pin tip. Okay, just push it in all the way. And then you can plug it into the back here. And it doesn't really matter which port you go into.
Okay.
It just has to go in there. And both of these pins are positive leads. Okay. And then what you need to do
So we don't have to worry about blowing anything up here.
No, there's no way to cross-wire this thing at all. Because the negative lead is a kind of connection here. It's a kind of a U connection. And it gets threaded into this place right here.
Okay.
Okay. So there's no way you can get these in the wrong spot whatsoever.
And the negative one is the one that you attach to your component that you're going to plate.
Right, because it has this alligator clip. It's going to be clipping onto your piece that you're going to plate somewhere.
And that's how it's actually conducting the voltage.
Yes.
And now how do you discard anything that's left over once you've finished plating? I mean, ideally you don't have that much left over, right?
Ideally you don't, and if you do have like a little trace, a few droplets or whatever, you can take a paper towel, wipe it out, and then store it perhaps in a Ziploc bag and head it to your local hazmat.
Save it for hazmat.
Right. And if you have a lot, you can pour it off into a separate container and save it for later.
Okay, because you don't want to contaminate. All right, well, let's take one more look at the pieces that you brought, because I think after you see how simple it is, you can really see where the gold is on these silver pieces, that it really draws out the pattern.
It does.
And that necklace is a piece that you carved yourself, isn't it?
It's a metal clay piece that I took a mold from and did that, and then did just highlights, little areas to bring, give it some punch.
Really gorgeous. And the other pieces, of course, again, you're just kind of going to the design and picking out elements and bringing them up with the gold.
Where it's appropriate. This is not designed to do the whole piece, but definitely little bits and pieces of things.
Oh, well, it adds such a really upscale designer look. Thank you for showing us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hope you've been inspired by today's show and have some new design ideas to try out. Next week, we look for inspiration in nature. Hope you can join us.